Does your Ford Explorer need upgrade brakes? Maybe your pads are worn. Maybe your rotors are worn as well. Well, instead of just replacing, why don't you upgrade with our Steeda slotted OEM rotors for your Ford Explorer ST. Here are the tools required. Starting up front, there are two 18mm bolts that hold the caliper on. Once removed, use a bungee cord to hang the caliper up and relieve the strain off the brake line. A coat hanger will also work. Now the rotor can be removed. You may need to break it loose with a rubber mallet. Go ahead and grab the new rotor. The larger one will go up front, and you want to make sure the pattern of the groove matches what you see on the screen. Now the caliper can be reinstalled. Get the two bolts in place and torque them to the factory torque specs. Moving to the rear, go ahead and remove both rear wheels. Because of the electronic park brake, we need to put the transmission in neutral mode. Make sure the Explorer is on level ground or lift it off the ground before you begin. If your parking brake is engaged, use the button to turn it off. Then, with the vehicle in accessory mode and your foot on the brake, change into neutral and press the M button on the gear selector. You will have 30 minutes before the transmission returns to park. To disable neutral mode, put your foot on the brake and select park on the gear selector. Again, there are two 18mm bolts holding the rear caliper. These are not as easy to get to as the front. Here you can see that top bolt that is behind the electronic brake. Once the brake caliper is free, you can set it on the lower control arm, making sure the brake lines are not being pinched. Then remove the OEM rotor and replace it with the slot version, keeping in mind the orientation of the slots. The rear caliper can be installed now. Torque the bolts to factory specifications. Repeat on the other side and your installation is complete. All right, so we just got these rotors installed, and let's talk about why you need these, who needs them, and how you can benefit from them. Well, if you've got a brand new Explorer ST, you probably don't need to get slotted rotors, but you're dealing with a vehicle that is almost 5,000 pounds, and over the course of several years, you might need a new set of rotors. Well, these are OEM factory Ford rotors. They're not overseas, they're not made in China. These are 100% OEM Ford rotors. What we did was we loaded them into our CNC milling machine. We then were able to make slots in the rotors. Now, we didn't just use your normal end mill with 90-degree edges and just put some gouges in this. We used a ball end mill. So think of the ball of a pen, it's round. We used a ball end mill to make these grooves in there. What that does is help reduce brake pad wear over typical slotted rotors. You have a nice, real smooth transition. Now, what do the slots do? Why do Porsches and all the fancy cars have them? Simply put, what that does is allow for outgassing. When your caliper collapses your brake pad onto the rotor, it is physically squeezing the rotor. That generates a tremendous amount of heat as this is spinning. The problem with that is that heat needs to go somewhere. As the pad comes across the surfaces, that allows for that heat to escape. That's called outgassing. It's why some rotors have holes in them. That's so the gaskets can go in, they can be removed. The problem with drilled rotors is unless the rotor was cast or forged with the slots, by just drilling holes in it, you're changing the structural integrity of that metal. It's going to be prone to cracking. Ask me how I know. So slotting is a much better way to remove the outgassing, not ruin the structural integrity of a high quality OEM Ford Explorer rotor. Like I said, you got a brand new Explorer, you probably don't need to do this. But when you need to replace your rotors, we have these for the front and the back. For a little bit more than OEM rotors, you can get nice slotted rotors. Increased performance, less brake fade, it's a no-brainer. Now in the back, it's a little bit more complicated to remove this caliper. You're gonna need one of these tools with the flexing head on it. It's gonna help you get to some of those caliper bolts on the back side. But once again, slot rotors, we slot the front and the back side because you have a brake pad on both sides. Now these are directional. These are gonna be the passenger side rotors. On the driver's side, they're slotted opposite. That ensures proper cooling through the factory vanes of this rotor. So hit like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and remember the most important thing, Steeda, where speed matters.